Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and good day to each and everyone. My name is Moxina Hajinor Panda, and I was tasked to discuss our topic, which entitled as an informational report on the monitoring and evaluation framework and the steps to monitoring and evaluation. But let's first have an overview of the flow of our topic para naman po makarelate kayo. In the Philippines, makikita natin na every leader is assigned with a specific task to monitor and evaluate. Ang executive departments ay in charge of developing policies and implementing programs that affect millions of Filipinos in all major sectors, from health to trade. And that's according to Battle and Others 2021. The National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA, is in charge of coordinating and supporting all activities related to the Philippine Development Plan. Now, these leaders presently focusing their attention on measuring outcomes and integrates monitoring and evaluation into program design and implementation. And the reason for this is para makabuo sila ng mas better decisions and create more effective and efficient programs to help Filipinos achieve better social and economic outcomes. Hindi basta na lang sila gagawa ng program without knowing or measuring if tatagal ba to or effective and efficient ba yung program. That is why parati nating sinasabi, especially from previous reporters, na ang M&E ay napaka-importante sa program design and implementation. Ayon sa mga authors na ito, ang internal and external demands and pressures for developments and innovations in public management are putting pressure on governments and organizations all around the world. By that, monitoring and evaluation framework provide a consistent approach to programs and projects so that sufficient data and information is captured to review the progress and impact of work program. Furthermore, monitoring and evaluation framework represents an overall framework handling monitoring and evaluation functions for the lifespan of a program and includes a step-by-step guide to its operationalization and application over time. So, ang purpose ng informational report na to is to provide a quick overview of the monitoring and evaluation framework as well as a step-by-step guide to monitoring and evaluation. It is also intended to provide readers and listeners with reliable advice on how to structure monitoring and evaluation in any program or project concerns. Now, let us start from defining what is monitoring and evaluation framework. Accordingly, monitoring and evaluation framework is a process of planning and a written product intended to guide the monitoring and evaluation of a program or other action plan throughout its life cycle. According to Mekong Institute, M&E framework is developed through making reference to the strategic plan document, making reference to the logical framework, making reference to the result framework, and through stakeholders engagement and consultation tulad ng sa pag-consult or engagement sa mga donors, project staff, government agencies, and beneficiaries nito. You may asking yourselves na ano nga ba ang importance ng monitoring and evaluation framework. It may sound silly, but this framework is very important in all types of organizations. Why? Because it can assist greatly with thinking through programmatic strategies, objectives, and plan activities. Where in fact, the previously mentioned authors addressed a range of different purposes of monitoring and evaluation frameworks such as result, management, accountability, learning, and program improvement. First is a result. Here, ang purpose ng M&E ay mahalaga kasi dito, syempre, before having a result, kailangan muna nating mag-establish ng program. At yung result ng program na yon ay siya yung ating i-identify and i-assess. And also, yung result na yon ay siya rin ang ating evaluate in the later end. Gagamit din tayo ng approaches and tools to anticipate and provide a basis na kung saan kailangan yung basis na yon nandoon yung reliability and impartiality. Second, management. The M&E framework is also very important to the management because in the first place, sila yung magmo-monitor at mag-evaluate sa lahat ng data initially and subsequently. For example, yung TER or Teacher Evaluation Rate na ginaganap every semester dito sa Mindanao State University. You may say na ang silbi ng TER is para lang ma-promote or ma-demote ang isang teacher, but it is a big no. Because the admin, which is also acts as management is ina-analyze nila yan at i-evaluate. And the admin also doing this para ma-monitor nila yung mga teachers and employees nila. So basically, ang gagawin ng management is i-compare nila yung result or the output of the program like the recent TER doon sa plano nila or yung results na na-conclude nila noong last semester, and syempre to derive final decisions. Third one is accountability. According kay Senator Win Gatchalian, monitoring and evaluation are important to exert accountability. So basically, accountability simply means as the obligation to explain and justify. So with the information gathered in monitoring and evaluation, it can support the accountability of the output to make sure na walang undesirable events such as fraud na naganap. Tulad na lamang ng issue ng isang whistleblower sa DOH about sa nawawalang 15 billion sa kanilang PhilHealth program. Upang maiwasan ang anumang matinding issue o problema, kinakailangan palakasin ang monitoring and evaluation sa isang organisasyon, mapa-private man ito o public. Fourth one is learning. Siyempre, napaka-importante ng M&E framework kasi magkakaroon tayo ng learning. With the result of monitoring and evaluation, you will learn a lot of things like ano ang dapat gawin, ano ang nagkulang, ano ang dapat i-prioritize, and kung ano pa man. And then, fifth one is program improvement. It simply means na the design and performance of the program, that like the TER, after evaluating us for the quality, value, effectiveness, and importance of a program, masiset na natin kung ano yung mga dapat gawin para ma-improve or maging mas effective yung program na yon. Nais kong i-share itong quote in relation to importance ng M&E ng isang programa. Sa likod ng quote na to ay nakikipag-argue si Senator Nancy Binay sa National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA and the Philippine Statistics Authority. Alam niyo ba kung bakit? Ayon sa kanya, dapat daw mag-create sila, which is yung NEDA at PSA, ng consolidated database to monitor success rates of livelihood programs financed by the government. She stated na dapat yung mga livelihood programs na binibigay sa mga tao, kooperatiba at organisasyon, dapat minomonitor ng ahensyang nagbigay. She also pointed out na kapag naibigay na, kailangan malaman kung namomonitor ba ng ahensya kung umunlad yung buhay ng recipient. Right? For example, nakapagpatayo nga ba sila ng negosyo? Ano na ang nangyari sa pamilyang tinulungan? So, sinasabi ni Binay na the lack of data on the success rate of government programs is alarming considering the billions to trillions of pesos na the government had already invested in the past programs for the past decades. Kung kaya't malaki ang role ng M&E framework base na din sa nasabi kong purposes nito, and para maiwasan yung mga ganyang issue, again, mahalaga ang data in making a successful M&E framework. Although there is no perfect framework, it is still concluded that monitoring and evaluation are integral to the effective operation of programs, that initiatives can increase the overall value derived from them. A clear framework agreed among the key stakeholders at the end of the planning stage is essential in order to carry out monitoring and evaluation systematically. This framework should clarify what is to be monitored and evaluated, the activities needed to monitor and evaluate, who is responsible for monitoring and evaluation activities, when monitoring and evaluation activities are planned, how monitoring and evaluation are carried out, what resources are required and where they are committed, and then the relevant risk and assumption in carrying out planned monitoring and evaluation activities should be seriously considered, anticipated, and included in the M&E framework. Now, accordingly, there are three different frameworks that are being used in various circumstances. These are the conceptual framework, the result framework, and the logical framework. Here, i-discuss natin isa-isa ang mga framework na ito at i-relate natin sa monitoring and evaluation. Let us first begin with the conceptual framework, which is also known as the research or theoretical framework. The conceptual framework identifies and illustrates the relationships between all relevant systematic, organizational, individual, or salient factors that may influence program and project operation and the successful achievement of program or project goals. Or to make it simple, yung conceptual framework ay nagbibigay ng clear connections between the relevant contextual factors and the purpose of the program. program. Ang framework na ito, mapapatanong ng how and why about doon sa program, operation, and design. For example, why or how this factor affects the program. Also, conceptual framework must be comprehensive as possible. Do not limit it only to what will you do. You should consider other elements if necessary. Another question is, ano nga ba yung purpose ng M&E sa conceptual framework? First is to show where the program fits into wider context. Second is to clarify assumptions about the relationship. Third is to show how the program components will operate to influence outcomes, gaya ng sinabi kanina. Fourth is to guide identifications of indicators, and lastly is to guide impact analysis or evaluation. The next is the result framework. The result framework is also known as the strategic framework. It identifies steps or levels of result and illustrates the direct linkages between the intermediate results of activities and the overall aims and goals. Tulad ng nasa sample na ito na napapaloob ang intermediate result or IR1 and IR2 na kinakailangan ng linkages sa pag-achieve ng strategic objective ng isang programa o project and its overall aims and goals. This type of framework is a useful tool para ma-identify or ma-illustrate natin yung center or yung focal point ng isang program, which is the result. Sa pag-achieve ng objectives and goals, and alam naman natin kung gaano kaimportante yung result ng isang program kasi ito yung imo-monitor at evaluate natin. So, pinapakita ng framework na to yung relationship between the results of the activity hanggang sa overall objective or goal of intervention. Fun facts, this is the type of framework na ginagamit ng USED and they call it performance monitoring plans. The good thing about the result framework is yung kanyang pagiging convenient in a way na it assists the management in identifying and selecting kung ano nga ba ang relevant treatment para ma-achieve natin yung goal or yung objectives ng isang program or project. So, what is the purpose or how the M&E relates in these types of framework? First, it provides a clarified focus on the relationships that connect incremental achievement of results to the comprehensive program. And lastly is to clarify program mechanics and factors to relationship that suggest ways on how to achieve the desired output. And last but not the least is yung logical framework. So logical framework is a table which presents a standardized summary of the project and its logic. Dito papasok yung if and then na questions. Sa left side is the diagram of logical framework na gagamitin ay if, then. If may situation, syempre maglalagay ka ng input. Then magkakaroon ka ng output and it will result to outcome. Yung example na to, ang situation is may headache ka. If may headache ka, then bibili ka ng pills. If may pills ka, then inumin mo yon. If mainom mo yon, then gagaan pakiramdam mo. Let us also take note na maraming possible outcomes dito sa logical framework. Doon mo rin ma-evaluate it's either effective ba yung gi-input mo para ma-solve yung situation or yung problem na kinakaharap mo, or kailangan bumalik ka sa first process which is mag-provide ng another input and cycle goes on hanggang sa ma-meet mo yung effectivity nito and to attain yung pang long-term effectivity nito. Sa table na to sa right side entitled Rural Education Project, papasok hindi lang yung if at then na questions. Papagitna din sa kanila yung and, which is yung assumptions if meron man. Sa table na to, if mayroong classroom building teacher training and at the same time reform teacher get paid, then mas strengthen yung system ng rural system. If mas strengthen yung system ng rural school, then mag-i-increase yung primary education. If mag-increase yung primary education, then malalabanan yung kahirapan sa rural areas. Moving on, this chart gives the emphasis for the framework of the monitoring and evaluation separately but at the same time connected sila sa isa't isa. As you can see, the monitoring framework is consist of 3 stages, which is the baseline monitoring, impact monitoring, and compliance monitoring. While yung evaluation naman is composed of 3 stages, which is ex-ante evaluation, midterm evaluation, and the ex-post evaluation. The trick here is although na-separate natin sila, still connected sila sa isa't isa. And as you can see, the whole framework has its 3 stages also. The pre-project stage composed of baseline monitoring and the ex-ante evaluation. The implementation stage naman ay composed of the impact monitoring and the midterm evaluation. And lastly, the post-project stage, which is also composed of compliance monitoring and the ex-post monitoring. To understand more about the flow chart of the M&E framework, let us give an example. Let us use one of the most common program of our government as an example, which is the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program by the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. This program gives a free housing unit for the Filipinos who wants to go back to their province. Let us start with the pre-project stage. In baseline monitoring, before the government implement the program, they first begin with setting up the objectives of this program, which is to provide hope for a better future to Filipinos through equity in resources throughout the country. Guideline din nila yung mga target nila in terms of economic, environmental, and social factors. For short, sino nga ba yung mga dapat na mag-benefit sa program na ito at ano ang dapat na status nila in our society? Siyempre, yung mga low-income citizen or family who will opt to move out of Metro Manila or other highly urbanized cities na they decided to move out for some circumstances. First is they decided to resettle to the identified rural provinces. Second, loss of a job or other source of income. Third, unsafe dwelling places. And fourth is exposure to health and safety risks and other environmental hazard in their current area of residence. They also analyzed the law that may affect the program, such as the Republic Act 8425, also known as Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Act. In this way, mas mapapadali yung pag-implement ng program. They also analyzed and delegate monitoring procedures and responsibilities. Siyempre, di pwede mawala yung Gantt chart. Gagawa muna sila ng informational flows as a reference for the Gantt chart. Itong Gantt chart doon sa subject natin sa BPA 170 about feasibility study, gagamit din tayo ng Gantt chart. Kasi nga itong Gantt chart na to help teams to plan work around deadlines at para maayos na ma-allocate yung mga resources. Dito nakikita yung start and end dates ng mga tasks ng program. Doon naman sa ex-ante evaluation, syempre, evaluate ng government yung capacity nila or kung ano yung kaya nila and also their resource para malaman kung kaya ba or hindi or kung kulang ba or sobra. By evaluating capacity and resources, i-apply nila yung value method or fuzzy method. But with fuzzy method is ito yung technique in solving the problem based or on uncertainty. Syempre, andyan na rin yung impact statement analysis, yung participatory management, human resource evaluation, and informational audit na dapat evaluate in implementing the project. And lastly, gagawa sila ng logic framework, which is na-discuss ko na kanina. Dumako naman tayo sa implementation stage, which is composed of impact monitoring and midterm evaluation. Let us begin with impact monitoring. Syempre, after na ma-fix yung mga resources na kailangan, after ma-set yung goal at yung mga target for the program and so on, and after ma-approve, syempre, i-implement na yung program. Sa program na to, sa Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program, nandyan yung DSWD na kung saan merong BP2 Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program na hired na social worker na magsuserve as the facilitator sa data collection, assessment, interview, and paggawa ng case study for modified conditional cash transfer. Nandyan din yung regional office team, yung mga other stakeholders, yung DOH, yung DOLE and TESDA para sa pag-provide ng livelihood support, yung DOTR na kung saan sila yung magsiset ng amount na ibibigay sa kanila sa transportation and relocation package doon sa mga beneficiaries, and yung mga LGU social worker. In impact monitoring, ang gagawin lang ng monitoring team in this stage is to monitor the objective, monitor the completion degree, probably the percentage of completion. Imo-monitor din nila yung progress, imo-monitor din nila yung mga staff, which is napaka-importante. They also monitor the resources, baka kasi magkulang yung mga resources nila, and speaking of which is set up nila yung budget, and lastly, they will monitor the deadline. At the right side, ay ang midterm evaluation. So, they can use first the PERT technique. So, ano nga ba itong PERT technique? After studying some accounting books, or I've learned from my friends from accounting department, kasi major subject nila ito. Accordingly, ito yung isa sa mga technique na ginagamit ng mga organization to calculate the amount of time it will take to realistically finish the project. Para siyang mga line branches na may mga number, kumbaga mga possible outcome ng project. After that is i-identify nila yung critical path doon sa mga possible outcome ng project. They can also need to make their project monitoring software. This software has the capacity to help our plan, organize, and manage resource tools and develop resource estimates. Napaka-importante ng PMS na ito, especially for those program ng government na kailangan ng malaking budget at malaking oras. Andyan rin yung ERPS or Enterprise Resource Planning Software, kung saan ito yung ginagamit din para ma-manage yung day-to-day business progress ng isang program. They can also use the stakeholder matrix as part of their evaluation. Ito yung tools na ginagamit ng mga organization to analyze and determine the actions para ma-align yung goals ng mga stakeholders doon sa project. They can also use the WBS or yung tinatawag na work breakdown structure. Its function is to break down the project into smaller pieces for convenience purposes and also used in evaluation. Lastly, they can also gonna use the cost efficiency technique para ma-determine nila yung input ng output nila sa program. And the final stage is the post-project stage, composed of the compliance monitoring and the ex-post evaluation. Ito yung stage na after ma-implement ng project or program. In compliance monitoring, syempre, they will monitor the results. They will monitor the impact of the program. They also monitor the stakeholder satisfaction. Andyan rin yung monitoring the sustainability and performance of program. And ex-post evaluation naman, syempre andyan yung feedback. They will evaluate the feedback of the program. They will evaluate the outcomes of the program in social and environmental factors, kasi napaka-importante na malaman kung ano nga ba yung impact ng program doon sa mga target or beneficiaries nito. They also gonna use the cost-benefit analysis. By its name, its only function is to compare the cost that they disbursed to the benefits that they receive. They also use the key performance indicators. It is a quantifiable measure used to evaluate the success of the organizations, employees, and so on. Let's move on to the steps to monitoring. So, what are the steps to monitoring? According to Dr. Jazia Zamir 2013, there are 6 steps to monitoring. First is determine the purpose and uses for your monitoring. These steps happen in early stage or yung tinatawag natin na pre-project stage, and syempre here we will be asking ourselves, ano nga ba yung imo-monitor natin at ano nga ba yung purpose nito. By this, it helps us to improve the program implementation. It gives us an accountability and also gives us a context for understanding effectiveness. Second, develop measurable objectives. After the step 1, dito naman is magde-develop tayo ng objectives or magsaset ng goal. We know na yung objectives or goals is yung core ng project, kasi kung wala yun, wala ring project. It means na kung walang goal, wala rin tayong i-monitor. Kumbaga, i-identify natin yung objectives natin. Third, develop evaluation questions. After natin ma-identify yung objectives, kailangan natin gumawa ng mga specific questions na gusto nating masagot. Our monitoring questions must be circulating in the intervention activities, including the human and other resources needed to carry the project and other factors needed for the implementation of the project. Fourth, collect and gather credible data. These steps collect data in a measurable and methodological manner to assure accuracy and ease data analysis. Because the data acquired is intended to offer content for data analysis, the information gathered must be of the highest quality to be valuable. This step happens in implementation stage, where we collect all of informations that we gather in implementation stage, gaya ng mga information na nakuha in monitoring the staff, o di kaya is yung data na nakuha in monitoring the resources, at marami pa. This is very important kasi ma-determine natin yung process ng pag-implement ay nakakaayon doon sa plano natin, also to avoid undesirable events. Fifth, analyze data. This step happens naman in post-project stage. After ng implementation and after natin makollect yung mga data regarding the implementation of the program, syempre, i-analyze natin yan para malaman kung tama o tugma ba yung naging result sa goal na i-implement natin at syempre, i-justify natin. Sixth, report. Here, we will report yung lahat ng findings na nahanap natin doon sa mga data na nakollect natin from the beginning to the end. This step is very important kasi dito natin makonclude yung buong conclusion about quality of the program or services. So, what are the steps to evaluation? According to Public Health Ontario 2015, there are 10 steps to evaluation. First, clarify what is to be evaluated. This step happen in early step. Ang purpose ng step na ito ay para makagawa tayo ng evaluability assessment na mayroong clear goals kasi gaya ng sabi ko, yung goal ang core ng program. Without the goal, then there is no program. And without the program, then wala tayong ma-evaluate. In this step, maaaring i-consider yung pag-develop ng logic model that includes goal, activities, outputs, and outcome objectives. Again, yung logic model doon nagaganap yung if and then. Second, engage stakeholders. The very purpose of this step is para makakuha tayo ng financial support for our project or program coming from the stakeholders like government agencies. Dito rin kailangan natin malaman kung ano yung mga interest, expectation, and benefits ng ating mga stakeholders. Third, assess resources and evaluability. Ang purpose ng step na ito ay para ma-assess yung mga resources para sa evaluation. Also para malaman kung ang project is ready to be evaluated. We know na napaka-time consuming and expensive yung evaluation but still kailangan honest tayo in assessing our resources na gagamitin sa project para maiwasan yung mga hindrances sa future. When I say resources or input, kasama na dito yung mga funds, time, support, approval process, and timeline of the project. This step is very important dahil pwede mong gamitin yung data na nakuha mo rito in decision making whether conducting the evaluation is feasible and necessary. Fourth, determine your evaluation questions. Like what I said doon sa step 3 ng monitoring, we must determine our evaluation questions for us to identify and determine questions to meet our evaluation goals. This is where you will consider type of evaluation na kailangan. Ang formative evaluation is typically used in development and planning of a strategy. And ang process evaluation addresses the extent to which an intervention is implemented as planned and reaching intended population, while ang outcome evaluation measures a program's success in meeting its goals and objectives. Fifth, determine appropriate methods of measurements and procedures. This step is very important also kasi hindi tayo makaka-proceed sa next step kung wala ito. For short, evaluation methodology is a tool to help better understand the steps needed to conduct evaluation. Kumbaga, cover nito yung concept ng buong evaluation at yung approach na kailangan gamitin. Dito kailangan i-consider yung purpose, yung evaluation questions, yung feasibility of data access, reliability of data, who will use data, stakeholder expectation, and what is already being captured. Dito tayo magde-develop ng questions patungkol sa program. Questions includes what to measure, yung mga indicators ng program, when to collect data, how to collect data, and for whom to collect data. Iisipin lahat ng mga ethical issues na involve sa data collection. Example ay ang confidentiality and informed consent nito. 6. Develop evaluation plan. In this step, evaluation plans detail how programs, policies, or health communication initiatives will be monitored and evaluated and how results will be used, providing transparency to stakeholders and funders. Aside sa pag-evaluate ng activities, tasks, roles, resource allocations, and deadline program, data collection matrix can be part of your evaluation plan. Ang matrix na ito kasama dito generally yung mga gathered na information from previous steps, evaluation questions, and link to logic model if applicable, indicators, methods, data sources, timelines, roles and responsibilities, and how data will be analyzed na optional. Then sa step 9, which is doon mo i-develop and ang dissemination plan mo, which can be added to the evaluation plan once completed na. 7. Collect data. Ito ay same with monitoring. I-collect natin lahat ng data na nag-gather natin, and this is important para masagot natin yung mga data collection tools. Meron tayong pilot test tools and closely monitoring sa mga data na nakalap upang matiyak ang validity nito. If issues arise, kailangan i-modify yung tools and procedures and then computerized data collection to facilitate analysis if appropriate. 8. Process the data and analyze the results. In this step, dito nakasalalay yung evaluation results natin. Dito makikita kung na-meet ba yung evaluation plan natin o hindi. Syempre, at the subsequent date, you will gather and generate the data. Dapat ma-familiarize ka sa data. Kumbaga, dapat alam mo kung ano yung sinasabi ng data mo because sometimes the data may tell you a different story. Be a critical thinker always. Implement strategies to review data quality during and after data collection. During data collection, look closely at the first wave of responses and number of no response or refusals, and keep data collectors and evaluation lead connected. After data collection, enter data and double-check quality and consistency of entry. Sort to find missing high or low values sa quantitative, and check content by reviewing transcripts entered doon sa qualitative. Organize data in a format that can be summarized and interpreted. Analyze by conducting statistical analysis of quantitative data. Identify themes in qualitative data. This is a technical step. Enlist expert support when possible. Step 9. Interpret and disseminate the results. In this step, you should make results available to various stakeholders and audiences. Dahil dito napapasok yung mga recommendations ng mga stakeholders. It is very important to communicate with your stakeholder. You must create a list of all recommended actions addresses the outcome of the program or project. Step 10. Apply evaluation findings. Dito i-review natin yung mga recommendations ng mga stakeholders natin para makabuo tayo ng appropriate actions doon sa outcome natin. Kumbaga, aalamin natin kung may dapat baguhin at kung meron man, gagamitin natin kung ano man ang nararapat na actions. Here also, marami tayong matututunan gaya ng ano ang dapat i-consider in implementing the project, ano ang dapat iwasan at ano ang dapat gawin. This paper concludes with a discussion of facts and indicates that proper monitoring and evaluation framework carried out at the right time and place can assure the success of many initiatives like projects, programs, and so on. It emphasizes that each phase in the monitoring and evaluation steps may have certain requirements that must be met for it to be successful. All of these are set in larger societal and intersectoral settings, emphasizing the necessity of distinguishing between short and long-term effects. As a result, this paper may serve as a springboard for readers, policymakers, and researchers to explore beyond a few targeted indicators and consider broader and unexpected effects of any reform. That's all. Thank you.